Batterie 60%. Connecté à un MICOLS HP.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes, sir, we do.
Thanks. Okay, so we can start. So this is a environment economic class, right? No, just kidding. I'm sorry about the email I sent you. I was completely, for some reason, I flipped the classes in my head. So yeah, this is an environmental economic class, economics of the environment, Econ 391 to be precise. So yeah, I'm Nicolas Lepage-Saucier. I'm a professor here at the department. Actually, I used to work in France. I've been there for the last 9 years, especially in Rennes, and so in Brittany, and then in Toulouse, in Garonne. So yeah, it was nice, but yeah, I decided to move back here. So here I am. It's my first year at Concordia. Yeah, so yeah, that's about it. So it's the first time second time I'm teaching this class. First time I'm having actually slides. So please be kind. My slides are very new, so there might be some typos in them. So if you see them, just tell me and I'll fix them. Don't worry. All right. So I'll jump right away into the class outline, if you don't mind. Okay, so of course, this was supposed to be an in-person class, but events out there got the best of us, and we're back on Zoom. Hopefully not for long, but who knows? So, well, for the time being, it's going to be this format. So it's going to be the same link for the Zoom class and for the office hours. So I've placed the office hours on Tuesday and Thursdays from 10:15 to 11:30 a.m. When the class is back in person, then the office hours are going to be in my office at the economic department. Right. Yeah, so lectures are Monday and Wednesdays. Textbook. this used to sort of be mandatory textbook, but I always feel not so happy with making them compulsory, because that's money is money. And for this textbook, I'm not sticking perfectly to it. Yeah, the theme look very much like them, and the classes was long ago based on it. But sometimes I diverge a bit. But so if you're struggling with economics in general, and you want more, so this textbook is really, it's good in the sense that it's basic. So if you are struggling with understanding the situations, the type of pollutions we can have, and the ways we think about them, then it's very good introduction with long explanations. So I highly advise that you get it. But as I said, it's not mandatory. There are some mistakes in the textbook, so when they come up, I'll tell you. Yeah, so two prerequisites, Econ 201 and Econ 203. So this makes this class quite introductory. Nevertheless, it can be difficult in the following sense. So the model, the basic model we're going to use is the MAC AD model. MAC is marginal abatement cost. So the cost of reducing pollution, because we care about pollution, and MD is marginal damage caused by the pollution. So you have to be quite familiar, or at least be willing to learn well how to solve for a system of linear equations, aggregate demand curves, supply curves. So this may be, that are linear, by the way. So yeah, nothing too fancy, but still it may be challenging because sometimes you have kinks that you have to worry about. So last time I started, so in the fall, some students found that a bit challenging. So I have decided to devote more time during the class to these exercises, to make you familiar with them and make you good at solving this type of math. So in the end, you're going to learn about environmental economics, but you're also probably going to learn about this. So, and it's going to be useful for you for your future economic classes. So it's nothing is lost there. But I want to to put this out there, that even though I wish it was more of a easy class, still we have to account for the fact that these sorts of problems exist, and you're going to find one or two in the exams. But yeah, I'm going to give you as much as many occasions as possible to practice and become good at them. All right, course description. So so it's a basic principle of environmental economics class, in which we use a mostly unified model to study most of the public policies we can want to implement. So taxes, taxes, quotas, all these things you're going to see, and so I think this is well done, and this is inspired by the book. So since we're using always the same sort of model, then it's very good for you to see that you can basically think of all these policies in the same framework and analyze them quite well in a non-trivial fashion. That said, I do think that environmental economics is an applied topic more than what we could say microeconomics is. Microeconomics is really the basic of everything in economics. So this should be an applied class. And if we were at master or PhD level, we would do something that's much more applied with numbers and numerical. And when I took over the class, there was nothing applied about it. It was purely theoretical. And I think it's quite sad to do that. Even though you're at the undergraduate level, you're still able to think originally about questions and applied well the knowledge that you learn in your classes. So what I decided to do is to add an applied aspect to it, which will be a benefits cost analysis. So we're going to see in detail what benefits cost analysis is. We're going to spend a few lectures on them, or yeah, I don't know how long it's going to take, but yeah, at least one lecture. And then you're going to get to actually apply your knowledge to a real world problem. So not just recite by heart what benefit cost analysis is, but actually go out there, find a topic, find data, and answer a question. So yeah, should I spend? Yeah, I think I can spend a few moments to explain what the cost-benefit analysis is. Obviously, I'm going to spend more time with it, but still, I want to explain a bit what we're talking about. So you can think of this as the same as any firm would do in the private sector. So if I think I have a good idea for a new product, I don't know, a new water bottle, and I think it's just the best water bottle in the world. So I think I will make a lot of money by producing it. Well, I have to go to the bank. Well, maybe I go to my friends or my family, but at some point I go to the bank and tell the bank, oh, please give me a loan. I need to develop my product. And the bank is going to say, well, should we trust you? Are you going to pay us back or not? And if I pay them back, good, they make money with me by the paying interests. But if I don't pay them back, then it's bad for them. How do I convince them that they're going to make money with me? Well, I have to bring them some plan on my business. So some business plan in which I tell them, this is how much I think I'm going to earn in money by selling my water bottles. This is how much I think it's going to cost me to produce them. And you see that if I add up all the benefits, all the expected sales, and I add up all the expected costs, then at the end of the day, the sales part or the positive part outweighs the negative part. So I have a net benefit from my enterprise. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense for me to do this kind of business if I think I'm going to go bankrupt. Well, this is what every firm in the world does or should do or has to do at some point. And believe it or not, that's what everybody should do or does in their lives, and that's what every government does at some point. So economics at the bottom of it is a science of choice. It's describing how people and firms and consumers and workers choose between different alternatives, and they are in all their decisions they have to weigh in the positive aspects, the negative aspects. So you came to Concordia because you thought that was the option that gave you the most positive instead of negative. So how did you do that? Well, it's very hard to say, well, I think at Concordia I'm going to learn stuff that's going to be useful next in my in the future in my life. And so I have to weigh this in terms of maybe future earning potential, but also I have the downside is I'm wasting a lot of time here. Maybe I would like to, I don't know, on a trip around the world or whatever. So how do you weigh the benefit in terms of money compared to the cost in terms of lost time, for instance? Well, you do that instinctively without thinking too much about it, but you still have to do it in some ways. You did decide. Governments should do the same. When they want to implement a law or a policy, now we're talking about COVID lockdowns, for instance, or curfews, or say forced vaccines. All these decisions they're not taken lightly. Well, we hope that the Legault government doesn't take them lightly. At some point, they have to weigh the benefits against the cost. And and in terms of environmental policy, it's the same idea. So anytime you have a project or a new law, a new policy in terms of that affects the environment, then the government implements or should implement a benefit cost analysis. In Quebec, there's the Bureau des audiences publiques en environnement, the BAPE, that's responsible for analyzing projects or situations in which there are conflicting interests and putting weights on the positive and negative aspects and deciding. So what is the benefit cost analysis in economics in general and in environmental economics in particular? Well, that's finding a way to speak about every positive aspect of a project or a law in terms of environmental quality, in terms of health, in terms of whatever you think is going to be the best, the benefits. And comparing that to all the negative aspects of the law and having some sort of common currency between the two, because at some point you have to compare the same thing together. So here we generally have just money as a way of computing stuff. So you weigh the monetary value of all the positive, the monetary value of all the negative, and then you're able to, at the end of the day, and if some benefits happen in the future, you have to discount them with some discount rate as well. And at the end, you can say, oh, I think the net benefit of such and such project is positive or negative. So this is what you're going to have to do. Of course, I don't want a 30-page work. It's way too long. It's an introductory class. So I want something quite short. So I think I said 5 to 10 pages, but if it's short, it has to be quality pages. Yeah, and of course, so some projects you have better data, some projects you have not as good data. So I'm lenient into how I judge things. So usually students do very well on the cost-benefit analysis, much more than on the exams. So don't think of this as something that's going to jeopardize your success in the class. On the contrary, usually that's something that raises the grades. Because I'm not saying to do it badly, but really some of the previous students did very, very good job and convinced me that it's a good idea to give it to you. So I trust that even at your level, you're perfectly able to produce quality work. Some of them I really thought I should just send them in an email to the government and tell them this is how good your law is, or this is how bad your law is. Yeah, so sometimes you hope that the government would pick a bit better. Anyway, so that's the benefit cost analysis. Don't worry about it too much already. It's going to come after the midterm. Yeah. So how we evaluate it? So the homework, which is the cost-benefit analysis, is 25%. Midterm, 35%. Cumulative final exam, 40%. Like usual, the final exam is cumulative in the sense that I may ask a few things that came up in the midterm, but obviously, since I've covered already many things in the midterm, it's going to cover more the second half, but yeah, it's still cumulative. Yeah, no extra stuff. So exams, well, hopefully they will be in class. So I've put the midterm exam on February 21st. I believe it's not during the break. No, the break comes later, right? Yeah. So February 21st in class. Shouldn't be the whole class, maybe half of it or 2/3, we'll see. Or maybe the whole class. I have to decide how well you do, but last time it was not the whole class, so maybe half. Yeah, it's going to be a mix of short questions and longer questions with some computation. Yeah, there might be a few multiple choice. Multiple choice, I mean, here's my take on multiple choice. They're awesome for teachers in a class where you have 1,002 students. Then it takes some effort to write a good multiple choice exam, but once it's done, then it's super easy to grade. For students, it's quite not that good actually, because sometimes you may miss like one word in the question or have some stupid calculation mistake and then have it wrong, regardless of the fact that you understand very well the subject. So it's always good to be able for us to look at your work and see, oh yeah, so I think I can give partial credit for this or that. So there might be one or two multiple choice questions, but not that much. All right, so yeah, cosmetic analysis, 5-10 pages. Announced officially on the 23rd. Did I change this, or does it make sense to announce it on the 23rd? That's Wednesday. Oh yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so let's just say I'm going to announce it there. And turned in by April 6th. Now I'm doubting myself. April 6th is... When is the last week of class at Concordia? Yeah, April 11th. So yeah, April 6th makes sense. All right, so it's good. Yeah, I did good. Okay, so that's questions about other questions about stuff I said so far. No. Good. All right, so class course outline. So we start with introduction. So here chapters, I say what chapters it is in the book. So introduction and overview of environmental economics, chapters 1 and 2. And then the crux of the matter is demand and supply function. So this is a review of stuff you've learned so far, although it might be a bit more technical. So in 201, we sort of make you compute stuff, but lightly. So here you have to be familiar with solving systems of equations and stuff like that. No derivative whatsoever. So this is a pain for me because teaching economics without using calculus is difficult. It's a challenge, but I tell you, you don't have to know any calculus to succeed in this class. So no stress with that. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, social efficiency. So this is deadweight loss, the fact that free markets are efficient if they're in perfect competition. Then the environmental economics part is market failures, externalities. So this is a technical term for that. Well, I'm going to define it further, but it's anything that has to do with people, say, dumping pollutions without caring about it, which affects a third party. So how should we correct markets so that these externalities are taken into consideration in the economics decision? So everything that the government does in economics, in environmental economics, ultimately has to do with externalities in some ways or another. public goods, and then the marginal abatement cost, marginal damage model, which is the central model of the. So the midterm should be around here. So I'm not giving specific dates there, but yeah, this the midterm should be around here. Yeah, and then environmental policy analysis. So here we describe the problem, market failure, public goods. We describe the model that allows us to analyze these things. And then we use the MACMD model to see how all of these sorts of interventions can mitigate the problems. So so everything that has to do with property rights, cost theorem. You're going to see later what this is. Standards, emission taxes, subsidies, transferable emission permits, all that stuff. Yeah, so the question is, would you see that the PowerPoints and note is sufficient to study for the midterms and the final? So life is about taking risks, and it's always less risky to even read the book and understand better. But I put the book there as optional. So if it's optional, it means that you should be able to do quite well without buying it. But yeah, some people may feel that the class is going fast, for instance, and they want to have, it depends who you are. If you understand very quickly, if you're super good at economics, then yeah, you shouldn't be too stressed about not buying it. But yeah, I've placed some at the Webster library if you want to check it out. I can show it to you. I have it here. So this is the book. Yeah, and it's the 4th edition. So maybe there's a newer one, I don't know. So there's an older one. But yeah, what's a bit painful to me is that I did find a couple of things that were sort of strange in the book from my economics perspective, and still is the 4th edition. So that's why I don't want to stick too closely to it. I feel like it doesn't give all that many concrete examples of things. So that's why I include much more discussion about specific problems that you can have in Canada, for instance. So the book is really basic and theoretical. Yeah, but it's helpful. It can be helpful. Right. Yeah, so the class should finish with this. Last time I didn't have time to cover Canadian environmental policy. It's nothing special. I would say it's Canada's environmental policy. Knowing what happens in the tar sand industry is rather underwhelming. Let's just say it like that. But if we have some time, I'm going to talk about it. Okay, so questions about the outline? No? Yeah, so just in general about how I grade. So I try to be nice, and I try to fail as few people as I can. So if you do an honest work, then you should be good. Yeah, I'm really not trying to make this class hard, because it's not a class that's made to be used as a sieve to have fewer people as possible that will continue in the economics program. This is core classes like micro and macro do that. This is a topic class, an applied class. So if you do an honest amount of work. I'm not really, my best objective is to make everybody succeed. That said, some people really last time did not that good, so I can't make miracles happen. If you don't work, then there's no hope. Let's just say it like that. Okay, so no further questions or anything. So I can, if not, I can. Yeah, what the average of the class? Let me check that briefly. Don't remember actually. Yeah, that's. As a professor, I should never say that to you. I should say, no, you have to work and blah, blah, but I understand your students, this matters to you because that's at your point, your job is having good grades. So you want to know, am I going to fail or have a good grade in this class? Oh, I didn't compute it. Yeah, I think it should be about 70%, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, 70%, more or less. Yeah, I had more hope that it would be higher, but I think what happened last time is, so I didn't emphasize on exercises enough, because I think that thinking about economic issues is more interesting than just doing math and stuff. But I've realized that still you're starting your career as economists, and I have to acknowledge that that not everybody is perfectly proficient at just solving equations and stuff like that. So the change I'm making from last time is I'm going to spend much more effort. So every time I finish a class where I introduce some way of analyzing or computing something, then I'm going to give you some exercises at the end of the class to make sure that you're able to understand what goes on. So because at the end of the day, there's no TA sessions for this class. So people have to give you feedback on how you compute. So hopefully the class average is going to be higher, maybe 75, 80%, who knows. Yeah, so I didn't curve anything last time. I just was honest. I gave what people got. But what I did now is put more weight on the work for which the average was much higher than a way for me to avoid catastrophes is to give more weight on the cost benefit analysis, because I have much more leeway in grading it. But because if it's an exam and you got everything wrong, then there's very little I can do. Does that answer the question? Anyways. Okay, so without further ado, let's start. Because we don't have a lot of time today. So the class finishes at 2, I think it's, yeah, 2:30. Okay. Yeah, so today's introduction. Okay, so what are we doing here? Are we wasting our time or not? So first questions that we're going to ask is, what is the state of environmental economics? What is the state of environmental problems? I'm sure most of you are going to agree that it's just it's not trivial. It's an important topic, and then introduce some concepts and definition. So why study environmental economics? Question number one, are environmental problems more important today than before? Yes, I'm going to post the slides, don't worry. So I'm waiting for your input now. I'm not giving you the answer. So anybody wants to jump in and talk or chat?
Sure, I'll jump in. I think they're more important than before, way more important because of climate change. I mean, climate change is probably one of the most important parts in modern history, or since the 2000s. A lot more governments are putting emphasis on that. What else? I mean, we're trying to go greener, right? I mean, most countries try to use less fossil fuels, to go to a greener planet. Again, it all comes back down to climate change, right? If we look in Europe just signed a treaty, I think it was last year, I do believe. Most countries would cut down on, I think, les effets, pas les effets de serre. I forgot what it was exactly. But they did sign a treaty to bring down their pollution consumption. So yes, I do believe that it is more important.
All right. Other opinions? CO2 emissions.
Also, I would say it's more important today, especially with the younger generation placing more importance on the issue compared to the older generations. So now we have more awareness and discussions on like how we could better improve the situation with climate change.
I think I missed the small part of what you said. So you said a younger generation place more weight on it?
Yeah, and like more discussion on how to improve the situation.
Yeah. Okay.
Rather than just delaying solving it.
Does that work though?
But yeah, that works.
Because sometimes you feel like countries are, they talk a lot, but then some people say that concretely well, that's something that somebody like Greta Thunberg would say, that they talk and talk and talk but don't really act in the end. But no, it's true that there are concrete actions that are being taken. Yeah. So yeah, there seems to be a unanimity that climate change is the big elephant or the huge whale in the room. So it's not a class that's purely about climate change. It's about everything, but it's unmistakable that we are going to discuss a lot about it and about energy in general. All right, so here's my 2 cents on it. So thank you. So yes, for the following reasons. Yeah, I'm not getting to climate change yet, but here are a few of the reasons why we may say yes. So resources are getting scarcer. So we may have talked in the past about the problem of overfishing or the problem of or dumping emissions in the air, but still humanity was not that important, and our technology to exploit nature was not as powerful as it is now. And now we are exploiting resources at a very, very rapid pace, and yes, some resources are just disappearing. So it's true of yeah. I could see minerals, environmental. Why is this? It's too big. So just yeah. So economists we don't really think of the atmosphere as something, well, we don't have any problem thinking of the atmosphere as a reservoir to dump pollution. I mean, let me rephrase this. This sounded really bad. So we think it's bad to dump pollution in the atmosphere, but what we're saying is, conceptually, we can think of this the same way as you could think, oh, we have a big hole where we can put all our trash in, and when the hole is full, then it's over. So it's like for the air, if you dump a few extra molecules of CO2 or methane, it's not the end of the world. But once you start dumping a lot and a lot and a lot, then problems start to appear the same way as you would for a river or for anything else. So in that way, yes, resources are getting scarcer. And as I said, the environmental pressure on the human pressure on the ecosystem is unprecedented, just partly because we have a much larger population than before. So, it's not long ago we were just 1 billion, and now at the end of the 60s we had a huge population growth, and now we are almost at 8 billion. So if we just polluted as much as people in Middle Ages, we would still exert tremendous pressure on the environment just by the sheer number of people around. And then we have extremely efficient technology to exploit nature. So just taking one example, so fishing. So we have sonar, we have trawlers. You know what trawler is? I'm going to write in French. It's okay, yeah. Fishing boats with very large net. That can, how would I phrase it? That can, yeah, extend to the bottom, yeah, to the seafloor. So it's very efficient, but what happens if you just grab as much as you can very efficiently? Well, sometimes it just dwindles and you don't have any more. So here's an example of this. So that's the yeah, that's not actually this. Yeah, it's not really well phrased. I should have said catches. But of course, it's the dynamic is because of dwindling stock. So what's going on in the 1950s? Well, we don't have such good technology to catch tuna, and plus, yeah, I might add that there was not as much pressure from the market to eat it. But then in the 60s, then a huge improvement in technology. And you can see that catches just exploded in a very short amount of time. So, but what happens to a dynamic where when you catch everything super quickly, well, the stock gradually declines and declines and declines. So even though you're super efficient at catching the fish, there's just not that many fish anymore, and it just crashed here. And the same thing happened in the for North Atlantic cod. So we had to have a moratorium. I don't know when, but yeah, it was so hard for fishermen in the Eastern Canada because they just the fish was gone, and now these villages are still in a very bad shape. They have never really recovered from this. So this is what happens when you have a very good technology combined with a very high demand for the fish. It just disappears. There was a paper recently that looked at the stock of big fishes for a very big amount of different species, and they found that like 80% had basically disappeared since 100 years ago. It's not that we are out of fish, it's just that we're out of big fish. And now what we have is small fishes like sardines that are not being eaten by big fishes, but also jellyfishes. So for amateurs of jellyfish and sardines, it's a fine situation probably, but for people who really like tuna, then you're out of luck. The days of very big tuna, plentiful catch are long gone. Yeah, this is for Australia and Japan, but that's the big countries that catch tuna. Then this is more in line with what you're saying. So are we confronted with environmental problems? Yeah, at a global scale, so global warming. That's the hard thing about it. What we're going to see is that, global means, oh, this is still too big. Just say 10, 10 is large enough. So it's difficult to coordinate well. If the problem is local, then you have some local official that can put everybody that's involved around the table and somehow come up with a solution. For global warming, well, we need our COP 1, COP 2, COP 3. Now we're at COP 22, I think. Somebody can correct me. And every time there's some hope, but you see that progress is being quite slow. So that makes things way more challenging. As we're going to see, this is the mother of difficult problem to deal with. It's in the future, it's happening slowly, and it's global, and it's, if you put some individual action to try and mitigate your personal impact, then the next person is just not doing something, and it doesn't change anything, because anyways, it's there's not a dome, a glass dome over each country. Everybody, every country has shares the same atmosphere, so it makes things so much more difficult. still we're here to try and understand and see how to address that. Yeah, so also there's a huge global market. So it means that now the pressure can come from anywhere. So back in the days, you would say, well, what's the big threat against rhinos in Africa? Well, maybe hunters, local hunters, but at some point they're more or less able to manage the local resource, so at least they're closer to the actual problem. But now, if Chinese decide that they think rhino horn is very good for their traditional medicine or for bringing back libido or other things, then they're ready to pay extreme amount of money for that. Then that's it. There's so the pressure on rhinoceroses is extremely high. Oh, I didn't put the statistic there, but yeah, I think like the value of rhino horn is some of the it's more valuable than gold, and yeah, it's extremely valuable. So I mean, if you're a poor African hunter and you can get such a huge payout for bringing back a rhino, then it's very difficult to deal with that. Large population, so we're on the cusp. Oh, did I already said that? Yeah, I said that here, but yeah, that's about the same point. Yeah, we're at the cusp of 8 billion, exploding in Africa. So extra added pressure on the environment. Yeah, with respect to climate change, it looks like things are accelerating. So it's even though I said it's slowly arriving, still it's visible from more and more. It's actually not that easy to attribute any special weather event to climate change, just because climate models are notoriously not super precise for extreme events. They are good to predict how the temperature on average is going to be in some region, but predicting the likelihood of extreme events is very difficult. But still, there's I would find it very difficult to find climate scientists who wouldn't say that climate change makes extreme events and floods and storms even more common. All right, but so these are two yeses. However, maybe it's not just yes. So you're young and you think, oh, it's just we're just such in a hard trouble and everything is new. Well, not really. So we've had environmental problems for a very long time. And so the fact that we're talking about it, the fact that we're just having this class shows that at some point we know that the problem exists, and it didn't used to be that way. So what we've learned from the past is we're able to manage resources better. So we have, for instance, many efforts to save forests. So we create national parks, and we are striving to make our technology having less impact on the environment. So I know it has impacts on the environment, but still car fuel efficiency isn't something that just appeared yesterday. It's been a slow process and we're getting quite good at it. Recycling that used to not exist. Although this I'm a bit disappointed. Well, not that recycling, yes, but compost as well. So I've lived in Geneva in Switzerland in 2006-07, and we had compost. And I thought, oh, well, so the Swiss are more advanced than the other cities around the world, but it probably a matter of a few years, and we're going to see centralized compost everywhere. No. So I don't have compost in my. I live in Montreal, and where I live, I don't have. Nobody cares about compost. So unless you somehow try to do it yourself with earthworms, then there's just no way to do it. So this is there is progress, but yeah. Yeah, I know. So some cities have compost. For instance, my parents live in Boucherville, and there they have compost. But it just took so long. I thought it's 2006, so I thought by 2021 there's just no reason that Canada cannot have compost in every city, but apparently yes. Anyways, so yeah, progress is happening, just not that quickly. And the problem with recycling, as we're going to see, is it's really a band-aid that sort of it's a imperfect patch. Yeah, I need to do it. It's just that so it would be more convenient if the city came and grab it, or in my so in my apartment building, if there was some effort to do it. Yeah, so one thing is environmental policy in general is making progress. So yeah, we're making progress, just not as fast as we should, maybe in some instances. One is our technological progress allows us to better protect and restore the environment. So this is somehow controversial in the sense that there reflects in many people's mind is the problem with environmental depletion came from technology. So why should we use technology to fix it? It seems like we're just piling on the problem or patching it in some ways. Generally, what economists will say and what I will say is, if technology can fix the problem, then why not? So it looks like we're just yeah. So the yeah, or what we could see is whatever works. That said, it's not true that the fix is perfect. So fix may not be perfect, but sort of okay, better than nothing. But better than not doing anything. Yeah, so the question is, so what's the net impact of online shopping? It's a good question. So here's my 2 cents on it. So this is, now I'm drifting away from pure material of the class, but if you think, imagine you think that people buy the same fixed amount before the internet or after internet and online shopping. Then before the exact same thing. So before the internet, the good goes from the manufacturer to the store, and then I go to the store, get the thing, and go back home. So so there are sort of two trips. Now, if I can just order it and it comes by mail to my house, so what's the difference? I guess if you can ship it in bulk to the store, then there's less maybe pollution. But then again, if you avoid the second trip, maybe it's a bit better. I don't know how you would react to that. I'm thinking a bit on top of my head there. What I think though is that since it's more convenient, then people may just want to shop more. So if now you think that online shopping has made us consume more, then that's another story. So yeah. So in all cases, I'm open to be challenged and convinced. So yeah, if you have viewpoints, so go ahead. That's the spirit of the class. Yeah, so consumers are eco-friendly and the companies aren't. Sort of, yeah. I think we all want to think of ourselves as virtuous, and it's just the problem of other people and people that aren't us, so companies that are not consumers. So I remember back in the days, yeah, it's true. But so I remember, like, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, I heard about there was a debate about electric cars, and there was it was in the radio, and then some caller called and said, yeah, I know that I should have a small car that's eco-friendly, but I need to go to my summer house or chalet or in the mountains. And so the scientist in the radio said, well, that's it. There is no hope. If you say, oh, I'm going to do whatever efforts I have to do, if it doesn't imply any disagreement for me or any pain, but as soon as I have to sacrifice something that I really like, then I won't do it. Then, so I think consumers like to think, oh, I shop and I use a reusable bag, so now I can take a plane without feeling bad. Well, you could like use 0 plastic bag in your whole life, and still taking this one trip in plane to Cancun would just destroy your whole efforts. So it's hard but I don't want to be too harsh on consumers, because it's difficult for people to know what matters, what actions really matter and what not actions don't matter. Yeah, but I do agree that companies are the ones that really know what's costly for them and are going to do whatever it takes to not introduce new legislations and not change the way that they do things. So I think about concrete, for instance. This is cement. Concrete it pollutes a lot, and it creates a lot of emissions, but at the same time, it's a magical material that's just so useful to build with. So so one thing is for sure, if we are to have success in some ways in terms of CO2 emission, industries are going to change, not just consumers. All right. Next point, we forget about solved past challenges. So this is a point I want to hammer in, is we're not discussing this for nothing. I'm never saying there's no hope, because many past situations looked like things were hopeless, and yet societies have found ways to address them. So here's one. So maybe you're too young to remember that or know that, but there's a big hole in the atmosphere, in the ozone layer, especially on top of the South Pole, Antarctic. But it used to be that the hole was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So scientists discovered that in the early 80s. And this is, if you have a hole there in the ozone layer, it means the UV light from the sun, it goes straight away and you get skin cancer. And well, there's a hole in Antarctic region, but it also there's a thinning everywhere in the atmosphere. And yet we had the Montreal Protocol, which was an international protocol to ban CFCs and other products that industry used, say in fridges and stuff like that. And lo and behold, it worked. So the hole has not disappeared, but you see that the trend is going well. So it's starting to the ozone is starting to form back, and of course, like everything that has to do with the atmosphere, with the whole Earth, everything takes a lot of time, but it's a success. So it means that if we study this kind of situation, what was bad about it, but what went well in terms of how we addressed it, then it definitely means that there's hope to address other things too. And by the way, we didn't. So we did use technology. So the technology was what was causing the problem is we were using bad chemicals. Well, we didn't stop using air conditioners and fridges. What we did is change the products that we use to in refrigeration. So we changed the technology for a new one, and it worked in that case. Oh, by the way, this website I'm going to use quite a bit, Our World in Data. If you don't know what to do on a Sunday afternoon, go there. It's amazing. So their data sets are incredibly good on many topics that have to do with social sciences or even earth sciences, many different things. So this again is so the Montreal Protocol happened there. So the series starts after, but this is what you can see happen. Yeah. So this is the annual change. So it looks like it's increasing there, but it's not increasing. It's just that the decrease is less quick because it still is a decrease. So every year, the CFC11 concentration, so one of the main culprits in the ozone layer hole, is being phased out. And this is a gap between what the world should be. It says here that the world should see according to what we document, and this is what we actually see. So there might be some people that are not reporting well or using these substances, and we don't know about, but still the trend is in the right direction. All right. Acid rains used to be a problem everywhere. We had that in North America. We fixed it by negotiating with the Americans. This is the situation in Europe, but yeah, the same type of problems happen. Acid rain was caused by these chemicals that mainly were produced by burning coal and other nasty stuff. And again, okay, if we have a problem that's caused by chemicals, how we ask ourselves, how can we not change everything, but phase out the bad stuff? And we had so this is one protocol, 1985, but it was just a first, it was just a small commitment of 30%, but then it was followed by another one. But as you can see, it worked very, very quickly once we realized that there was a problem. I'm not saying that climate change is going to, everything's going to go well super fast. Of course, that's not the case. Sorry, I just started this morning too, and my voice is sort of fading away, but I'm going to try to survive. All right. Preoccupations of the environment, are they recent? What do you think? No reaction? Is my sound working? Yeah, I think it is. No idea. Well, all right. So let me show you what I've prepared about this. So in some ways, yes. But as you, oh, thank you, Mr. Lucier, to pitch in. So you believe no. So yeah, again, that's yes and no. I've prepared both. So why yes? One is just we have better scientific evidence. So we're just measuring everything. So it's, with much more measured, and it's very easy to document it and know that there's a problem. And by the way, what did the so there's the CO2 that's being measured in many places in the US. I think in Hawaii too. No. I'm yeah. Of course it is, but yeah. No, what I wanted to talk about was the acidification of the ocean. There's a very nice time series of the level of acid in the ocean. And the more and more CO2 there is in the atmosphere, the more gets absorbed in the ocean, and that's making it as acidic. And in the US, they have very nice time series of, you can see exactly how acid is becoming. Well, one of the first thing that the Trump administration said is, oh, well, now we know that oceans are getting acidified. So yeah, you can stop measuring it. So he asked the scientists to just stop taking measures. Thankfully, they didn't listen. So of course, when you stop looking at the problem, then you can just pretend that it doesn't happen. So maybe in Quebec, if we want to not have COVID anymore, we just have to stop testing anybody. So now we don't know. But yes, if we have better scientific evidence, it's best to document it. It's more being reported better in the media. Before we just, people didn't know about it. More parties are being involved. So at the COP conferences, for instance, you have citizens, NGOs, enterprises, governments, all these bodies are being involved. So yeah, big NGOs is of course Greenpeace and others. Yeah, so there's a lot of people to talk about it. Do you know about the Kuznets curve? Somebody would say what it is. Well, I sort of said it a bit, but in more detail. Wow, I really hope that I have more talkative people, because please talk. It's not fun for me, and it doesn't make the class so much fun if there's no interaction, I could just have recorded that and that's it. Okay, it's a hypothetical curve. Well, all curves are hypothetical. But thanks for. Oh, yeah. So that's the thing. Mr. Kuznet is known for two things. So one is inequalities, yes. So we use the Kuznet curve to measure the Gini coefficient. Yeah, not exactly environmental progress. Okay, so you have nobody has heard of the Kuznet curve. Okay, all right, so it means I'm useful for something. So Kuznet curve is, so yeah, Kuznet curve is link between income, GDP per capita, and impact on environment. And the idea is simple. So you have, imagine you have three stages. So like poor, developing, rich. So the poor have little impact on the environment. It's tricky because they have little technology and they don't produce a lot, and they tend to be closer to nature. Developing nations, they have big impact on the environment because they just used to be poor, so they're just trying to survive and become a bit better off than before, and they don't have access to extremely advanced technology. They use what they can, so they use coal, they use wood, and they yeah, or if you're a poor hunter in Africa and you're getting a very good bribe from a rich businessman to just kill a rhino and give the horns, then you just think, oh, I'm going to feed my family for a month with this money, so I'm just going to do it. So they have a big impact on the environment. But then rich, they start to worry about the environment and clean up their act. Yes, exactly, Hussam, that's exactly it. So that's, and it's true that it's theoretical in the sense that it's an idea. We're not sure it works, but there is some evidence that it does work. Yeah. So if I wanted to show what this looks like, so this is stylized. So in a theoretical way, what this looks. So if you're very poor, then you have little environmental degradation. Then the worst is if you're just somewhat poor, but not so poor, because now you have bad technology, and then things start getting better because since you're eating, at least you're eating and your children are not dying too much when they're young, then you can start to think about, yes, but what about other things, meaning of life or whatever, and having a clean environment is part of it. And if you're very rich, then you're like, I don't know, like some European countries like Switzerland or Sweden that just are doing so much to care about the environment. It's just amazing. Yeah. So what evidence do we have of this? Well, let me ask a question. So should you feel guilty about plastic in the ocean? So for those who, for some reason, have never heard of this, so there are big patches of the ocean where there's a big concentration of plastic because it's being carried there by the currents. So we've seen many so they call it the plastic island. Of course, it's the island, it's still water, but it's a place where you can really find a lot of plastic, and sometimes it goes on shores and it's being eaten by birds. So we should really think about this, how to fix this. But then the question is, is making a movie about it and showing it in Canada, for instance, is it the good way to do that, by making Canadians feel concerned about the topic, for instance? I'm thinking about how to address the problem here.
You should probably show based on where most of the pollution is coming from.
Yeah, and where do you think it is?
I'm not sure.
That's a good question. So question number 1. Where is it coming from? So you may think, oh, I'm not going to use my plastic bottle today. And then because that plastic bottle would have been a bottle that would have ended up somewhere in the ocean for sure. Well, maybe not. I do think that we tend to yes and no. Yes, exactly. So that's so what it says there is that in the developed countries we have very good infrastructure to try to let as little plastic as possible spill in the water. But for developing nations, it's not as easy. They're not as advanced, and all this takes a big infrastructure to do. Yeah, exactly. So in Canada, so I'm not saying we have 0 plastic bottles in the ocean. So we have a good organization, and anything I'm saying is not to judge anybody or to say they're guilty or whatever. It's purely as a matter of, if you just want to dispassionately solve the problem, the first question is diagnose it well. And not being advanced as Canada is, for instance, it just is. It's not your fault. So yeah, so I think that's a good point, though. So the point is, it's not saying that Canadian, so that's something, though. So I'm saying, as consumers, should we feel concerned about our own plastic bottle? Not necessarily, but it's true that if you have some Canadian company that uses shale oil to produce plastic to make bottles, and you're exporting this plastic to all over the world, then of course your plastic is probably going to end up there. That's part of the problem of having a globalized. Yes, Mr. Lucier. Oh, I'm out of time. Sorry. I think that was it, right?
No, well, it's not. It's not. I just wanted to add on that point.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as companies do want to do, they want to look over their footprint. You have to take in consideration that, for example, if that packaging is going to cost them 10 cents, for example, all plastic, and biodegradable one is going to cost them 50 cents, then obviously they're going to be losing money. That's a first thing. But us as consumers, you have to think also around the world, everything's going to cost so much more, right? So there's a inflation gap somewhere there that people have to take in consideration, or either the consumer or either the companies or the producer have to take a hit somewhere. So it's either the consumer that pays more, and he's not going to be happy because obviously it's going to cost him maybe, I don't know, twice the price that he used to pay, or the producer is going to be, cutting his profits by, a third compared to what he was supposed to make in the first or second quarter of the year.
I agree with everything you said, except the either or. I think it's and. It's going to, so that's exactly what we're going to see later on. So how to make the adverse impact of some activity like using plastic being part of the economic decision to use plastic or not. And if you, for instance, tax it, then you're going to see that both the consumers who still buy the plastic and the firms with respect to their shareholders who were making profit out of making plastic, both of them take a hit. So, and it's so that's part of the, so if you remember your macro class, that's it depends on the surplus of both parties involved. So and the elasticities of demand and elasticity of supply, basically we're going to see that later. But yeah, we're out of time, so yeah, I'm going to show you more evidence on this next time. So it's good to keep some suspense. All right, so thanks a lot. By the way, so last final question before I finish. No, all right. So thanks a lot, everybody, and I see you Wednesday.